Thank you guys. Wow, and I read that newsletter. That was fantastic. So I'm excited to talk about it more. It's such a treat to be here. This is kind of the perfect. It's really fitting to be talking here in this place for a couple of reasons. One, John Borthwick, the founder of BetaWorks, about 12 years ago, John and I created a little app called Findings that was the kind of prototype in a way for what became NotebookLM. It was a place to store your ideas and quotations and revisit them digitally. We needed a complex large language model attached to it for it to fully work, and those just did not exist in 2012. But John and I have been kind of like riffing on these ideas for a long time, so it's special to be at BetaWorks. Betsy and Meshed were the first educators and educating kind of consultant organization that we showed. I mean, I talked to you about, textbooks that we could use to test in August of 2022, and we showed the second preview of what would become the launch version of NotebookLM at this very event last year. So we have a long history going back with Meshed, and Kimball and Catherine and I have been doing these events together for a while too. And finally, the students, I mean, since we introduced this new audio overviews feature 3 weeks ago, one of the main drivers has been, amazingly, students on TikTok who are uploading their class materials and then generating these audio overviews, and they basically just film themselves listening to the audio that has been created and just kind of having their minds blown, and they share that on TikTok, and those are getting millions and millions of views. So we really appreciate the student involvement with this. We think this is an important product for the future of education in a lot of ways, and I'm going to try and talk about it. So I'm going to give you just a quick overview of what it is, and then I created a new demo last night that I recorded in one take, but I just wanted to make sure it was all there, and I'm going to kind of talk you through that, and then we'll turn it over to a conversation. So NotebookLM, it fully kind of launched internationally in June. We think of it as a tool for understanding things. A word processor is a tool for making documents, and Photoshop is a tool for moving pixels around in an image. This is a tool for taking the material and the information that you most need to understand, and everything in the product is designed to make that easier for you and help you dive deeper into the material you're trying to explore, and increasingly to kind of make things out of that new understanding. That's the kind of workflow we're developing. It's in 180 different countries. It's multimodal, as you will see. I think it's fluent in about 100 languages now, which is extraordinary. So you can upload documents that are in Japanese and have a conversation about them in Spanish. It doesn't really think of languages as anything that kind of divides the information it works with. As Amanda mentioned earlier, it relies on Gemini Pro 1.5 with this very large context, which is really important to what we're able to do. So in a sense, the model's ability to focus on large amounts of information that you provide is dependent on this large context. It's a really important breakthrough in AI, probably not understood enough for its significance. Currently 18 plus. We would like to change that, but that's where we are in terms of the age restrictions right now. The core idea from the beginning with this project was that you were not just having an open-ended conversation with a model. Everything you were doing in the conversation was grounded in the sources and the information that you gave it. And that helps on a couple of different fronts. It lets you personalize the AI. The AI effectively becomes an expert in the information that you give it. It reduces hallucinations dramatically. Gemini is extremely good at being factual and grounded in the documents you give it. So you can trust, and you'll see there are mechanisms for kind of trusting but also verifying. And importantly, we do not train the model on the information you share. So it stays private. We are just putting that information into the model's context window. When you close your session, it goes away, so you can feel secure about the information you're sharing. So what I want to talk about today is, I think when we first started, introducing this idea of source grounding, people saw it as almost a kind of like a factual mechanism. So you would upload documents and you could ask questions and you would get factual answers based on the questions you asked. And in fact, Notebook does that extremely well, and that is a wonderful way to use the product. But there are also a lot more kind of subtle ways that you can use sources. And what I want to do today is show you a variation of what we've seen a couple of times here, which is using Notebook, which we've been working on with MeshEd, as a tool for creating a complex lesson plan, drawing upon a number of different sources. So in this case, I want to just show you the kinds of sources you could use. So on the one hand, there's the content, right? What do you want the class to be about? And that can be based on your own handwritten notes. It can be based on reading materials, textbooks. That could be based on interviews. It could be based on meeting transcripts from the team. And then in addition to content, there's also like the guidance. So like outside kind of standards documents, for instance, that suggest guidelines for how these classes should be done, or formatting, supervisor feedback that you got, your student needs, all the things that are kind of steering not the substance, but the kind of the form and the values that you want in the class that you're creating. So you can do that with NotebookLM with the right kind of prompting. So in this case, I was dreaming up a class that I would actually like to take myself, which is a 4-session project-based learning class on urban planning inspired by the work of Jane Jacobs, right? So it sounds good, right? And so I basically kind of scripted out a few prompts in advance, knowing the sources I was going to put in. I'm going to show you how this works inside a notebook. But there's a question to create a high-level overview of a lesson plan of a project-based learning course on urban planning inspired by Jane Jacobs. And then I'm kind of anticipating in advance that I'm going to follow up and ask about the alignment question. Does it align with the standard stocks here? And then I want it to synthesize everything we've done in the conversation into a single document. Okay, so let's go into Notebook. And this is what you see when you start. You have a series of notebooks for projects that you're working on. So I'm going to just create a new notebook here. I'm going to call it lesson of live Jacobs lesson plan. So I'll create this notebook, and now inside this notebook I can upload sources, and they can be Google Docs, they can be slides, they can be copy text, they can be PDFs. So starting with a bunch of quotes from Jacobs' classic book, Death and Life in the Great American Cities, and I've uploaded those quotes, instantly get this kind of summary. This is what we call a notebook guide. So you can see the model has generated this summary, just in that short amount of time. This is all live, recorded last night. I can, with one click, create an FAQ based on those sources. I can create a study guide. I can create a table of contents. I can organize it as a timeline or a briefing doc. Or I can have a conversation in the chat about those documents. But I'm going to keep uploading more sources here. In this case, maybe I found an interview with Jane Jacobs on YouTube. We now support YouTube URLs. And so, here's Jane Jacobs near the end of her life, having an interview somewhere on Canadian TV, I think it was. And so I just grabbed the URL from that interview. And then I'm going to paste it back into NotebookLM. It's going to create a new source based on the YouTube text from the transcript from that interview. So I'm just going to paste it in here. So now I'm slowly building up. I'm curating the knowledge base that I need for this project. So the art of curating is really important here. Now, let's say I've taken some notes in my really crummy handwriting, and I've basically outlined the structure of the class that I'm thinking about. So I've got just a PDF scan of my notes. You can see them right here. The underlying model reads handwriting perfectly. You can see it generated this summary just off of this little scan of my notes. It understands the handwriting. There's no kind of process of it. I just stick it in there and it will figure it out what it means. So now I've assembled the content, right? And what I want to add is a standards document here. So I've got the HQ PBL, like high quality project-based learning standards that I got from Betsy. And so this is, now I've got the kind of the guidance and the content all lined up. I can go and read that document from inside of Notebook anytime I want. This is a really important part of the interface. You can always read the sources that you upload. And so now I'm going to start this process of creating the lesson plan. And basically, I'm going to take that initial prompt that I showed you before on the screen. I'm going to say, create a new lesson plan, integrating all these different sources. Notebook is going to think for a little bit here. It's going to generate quite a long document, so it's going to take a little bit of time, but it's going to do this work of synthesizing across all the sources that I've added to this. So it's creating a unique document based entirely on the knowledge that I have uploaded, and it's going to be organized in a really nice way. And there it is. Session 1, Session 2, high-level lesson plan. Now, what's really cool about this is I actually, because I did this in one take last night, I forgot to mention that it should follow the structure of my handwritten summary. But you'll see it actually realized, because I had written structure for the class, it understood that those handwriting notes were the structure for the class. And so if you go back and look at my handwriting, you can see like it says Session 2, students create, choose a neighborhood to explore, and over here it's Session 2, neighborhood deep dive. Session 3, students propose interventions. Session 3, proposing interventions. So it just understood. I didn't even remember to add that instruction, but it understood that this was an outline. Now, I want to ask about the alignment question. Like, how is each section of this class that it's just kind of dreamed up, how is it aligned with the guidelines that I gave it? So I asked for a quick explanation of how each proposed session aligns with the guidelines, the HQ PBL guidelines, and it goes through and it pulls out specifically a description of where the alignment is actually happening. And as you can see, throughout all of these, there are citations. So I can always go and check in the original source. I just roll over one of those citations. It will show me the original text from the guidelines so that I can confirm that the model's answer is accurate. I can then click on those citations and I go directly to the place in the document so that I can read more. This whole flow, asking a question, getting a citation, clicking on the citation, going into the document to confirm it, that is something we've been doing and working on from the very beginning of this project. It's not enough to just get the answer from the model. You want to be able to verify it. You want to be able to explore through those citations and read on your own. Now, I think this all looks good, so I want NotebookLM to integrate it all into a single document, both the explanation of the alignment and the original lesson plan it created. So I just ask it to kind of create one big master document, and it will do that. This kind of process of having an open-ended conversation, asking for refinements, going back and forth, and then at the end of the conversation, asking for a synthetic kind of document at the end that synthesizes everything. NotebookLM is really good at that. It's created this revised high-level lesson plan, urban planning, and Jane Jacobs. It talks, you can see in the italics there, it says alignment with HQ PBL, so it explains what that session is doing in terms of the standard stocks. Again, I can fact check. And at the end of it, if it's ready for me to start editing and refining, I can go down to the bottom of it, and there's a little copy button, and I can just copy the whole thing and just paste it into whatever, into Docs or whatever I want to do. So in this case, I'm going to copy it to the clipboard, go over to Docs, create a new doc, paste it in there, and then I'm off to the races with this lesson plan that I've created in concert, in partnership with NotebookLM. Now, audio overviews, last thing to show you. Let's say I then take this lesson plan and I create a new notebook, and I bring it in, let's bring it in here. Audio overviews take about 3 to 4 minutes to generate. I've pre-generated this one. This one actually is a little bit awkward in the beginning. I think it's not quite as good as it normally is, but you can hear it start to kick in. So I've given it the lesson plan. The instructions of the audio overview is to create an interesting conversation, drawing upon the most compelling, interesting ideas in whatever documents you give NotebookLM. And so this is what it sounds like.
Hey there. Ready for another deep dive? Today we're tackling urban planning, but not just, zoning laws and traffic patterns. We're going deeper.
It's about the DNA of cities, right? How they work, how their design impacts our lives every single day.
Totally. And get this, our guide is this super cool high school course called Urban Planning, a project-based learning course inspired by Jane Jacobs.
Catchy, right?
Oh, I know, mouthful. Trust me, it's way more interesting than it sounds. So basically it takes the ideas of this, like legendary urbanist Jane Jacobs, and helps students actually apply them to their own communities.
It's about empowering them, right?
Right.
To become those urban planners, activists, engaged citizens.
That's exactly it, which is so cool. We actually have the lesson plan for this whole course.
You're kidding, the whole 4 weeks.
Yeah, a sneak peek into each session. Okay, so session 1 starts strong with this theme. The kind of problem a city is.
And they go on for like 10 minutes having this deep dive into the lesson plan that we just generated. So that is, in a quick overview, just some of the things that we think are possible. Let me switch back. With NotebookLM, that is a very high-level form of knowledge work that is happening there. The ability to synthesize ideas across a number of documents, refine them, and then turn them into a high-level form, and then convey it in different forms of media. That's what we're so excited about with this product, and go check it out at notebooklm google.com. Thank you very much.